Gaura 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 Hare Gaura 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 Hare Gaura Hare Gaura Hare Gaura Hare Gaura Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Joy, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Go to Premanandi.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahans Parivagacharya Stotara Satsi Srimat His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Iskcon Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Koho Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Brajbhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navdip Dham Ki Jai Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrunda Devi Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Hare Krishna Dham Houston Ki Jai The Divine Lordship C.C. Nitai Chaitanya Chandra Nitai Gaur Chandra Ki Jai The Divine Lordship C.C. Radha Giridhari Ji Ki Jai The Divine Lordship C.C. Giri Govardhan Ki Jai The Divine Lordship and Most Merciful C.C. Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai C.C. Radha Nila Madhava Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Brajajanam Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Simad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You got to have the magic touch. You got to be a bhakta in the bhakta program. Then you can get the light to work. Sign up.
So I don't know the meter for this. Does somebody good at Sanskrit chanting want to lead the chanting? Because otherwise I'll just, without meter, just read the verse. Any volunteers? Nrishu tava mayaya brahman amishva agvakasya brashyam. Tayi sudhiyo bhave dadati bhavam anuprabhavam. Katam bhavayam tava yad bro yakotihi. Sujati muhustri nemir abhavach chareshu payam. Nrishu tava mayaya brahmam amishya avakatasya prishyam. Tvayi sudhiyo bhave dadati bhavam anuprabhavam. Katam anuvartatam bhava bhayatava yad brukutihi. Srijati muhustri nemir abhavach charaneshu payam. Rishu tava mayaya brahmam amishvagatasya. Tvayi sudhiyo bhave dadadhi bhavam anuprabhavam. Vartatam bhava bhayam tava yad brukitihi. Srijati muhustri namir bhavavach charaneshu payam. Any ladies want to venture? Nrisho among humans. Tava your Mayaya by the illusory energy. Brahman bewilderment. Amesho among these. Avagatya understanding. Brisham fervent. Twayi unto you. Sodiyaha those who are wise. Abhave unto the source of liberation. Dadadhi render. Bhavam loving service. Anuprabhavam potent. Katam how. Anuvartatam for those who follow you faithfully. Bhava of material life. Bhayam fear. Tava your. Yat since. Bhru of the eyebrows. Kotihi the furrowing. Surjati creates. Moho repeatedly. Trinemihi three rimmed in the three phases of time, namely past, present, and future. Not bhavet from you. Sharaneshu for those who take shelter. Bhayam fear. Translation: the wise souls who understand how your Maya deludes all human beings, render potent, loving service to you for the source of liberation from birth and death. How, indeed, can fear of material life affect your faithful servants? On the other hand, your furrowing eyebrows, the triple-rimmed wheel of time, repeatedly terrify those who refuse to take shelter of you. And the 4-page purport. The Vedas reveal their most cherished secret, devotional service to the personality of Godhead, only to those who are tired of material illusion, which is based on a false sense of independence from the Lord. The Vaja Saneyi Samhita of the White Yajurveda contains the following mantra. Paritya Bhutani Paritya Lokan Paritya Sarva Pradisho Dishascha Upataya Upastaya Pratamam Jam Ritasya Tamanatmanam Abhi Sam Vivisha. Translation. After passing beyond all the species of life, all the planetary systems, and all the limits of space in all directions, one approaches the original soul of immortality, then one receives the opportunity to enter permanently into his domain and worship him with personal service. Pretty nice. The proponents of various contending materialistic philosophies may consider themselves very wise, but they are in fact all deluded by the Supreme Lord's Maya. Vaishnavas recognize this pattern of general delusion and submit themselves to the Supreme Lord in the devotional moods of servitude, friendship, and so on. Instead of the heat and strife of philosophical quarrel, the pure Vaishnavas experience only delight at every moment because the object of their love is he who brings an end to material entanglement. And the devotees of Lord Vishnu enjoy constant pleasure not only in this life but in future lives. In whatever births they take, they enjoy loving reciprocations with the Lord. Thus, the sincere Vaishnava prays, Nata yoni sahasreshu yeshu brahmam yaham tatra chuta bhaktir achutastu dridha twayi. Wherever I may wander, O Master, among thousands of species of life, in each situation may I have firmly fixed devotion to you, O Achyuta. That's one of 4 pages. Some philosophers will question how the Vaishnavas can overcome their material entrapment without thorough analytical knowledge of the entities Tvam, you, the jiva, and Tat, that, the supreme, and without developing a sufficient hatred of material life. The personified Vedas here answer that there is no chance of material illusion continuing to act on devotees of the Lord, because even in the earliest stages of devotional service, all fear and attachment are removed by the Lord's grace. Time is the root cause of all fear in this world. Indeed, with its 3 divisions of past, present, and future, it creates terror at the prospect of impending coronavirus, death, and hellish suffering. But only for those who have failed to obtain shelter at the feet of the Supreme Lord. As the Lord himself says in the Ramayana, Lanka Kanda, Sakrit eva prapano yas tavas miti cha yachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadam yetad vratam mama. 2. Whomever even once surrenders to me, pleading, I am yours, I give eternal fearlessness. This is my solemn vow. Furthermore, in the Bhagavad Gita 7:14, the Lord says, Daivahi yesha gunamayi mama maya daratyaya mam eva prapadyante maya me tam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Vaishnavas do not waste their time in prolonged and fruitless wranglings over dry philosophical subjects. They would rather worship the personality of Godhead than quarrel with philosophical adversaries. The Vaishnava's understanding concurs with the essential message of revealed scripture. These devotees' conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth as the infinite ocean of personality and loving pastimes in his worshipable forms of Krishna, Rama, and other divine manifestations, and their conceptions of themselves as his eternal servants, amount to the perfect conclusion of Vedanta philosophy in terms of the entities Tat and Tvam. That's 2 pages of 4. The personality of Godhead and his emanations, such as the jiva souls, are simultaneously different and non-different, just like the sun and its expanding rays. There are more jivas than anyone can count, and each of them is eternally alive with consciousness, as the Shruti confirms. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. When they are sent forth from the body of Mahavishnu at the beginning of material creation, the jivas are all equal in the sense that they are all atomic particles of the Lord's marginal energy, but according to their differing conditions, they divide into 4 groups. Some are covered by ignorance, which obscures their vision like a cloud. Others become liberated from ignorance through a combination of knowledge and devotion. A third group of souls become endowed with pure devotion, with a slight mixture of desire for speculative knowledge and fruitive activity. Those souls attain purified bodies composed of perfect knowledge and bliss, with which they can engage in the Lord's service. And finally, there are those who are devoid of any connection with ignorance. These are the Lord's eternal associates. The marginal position of the jiva soul is described in the Narada Pancharatra. Yat tata stam tu chidrupam sva samvedyad vinirgatam ranjitam guna ragena sa jiva iti katyate. Translation. The Tata star potency should be understood as emanating from the Lord's samvit, or knowledge energy. This emanation, called the jiva, becomes conditioned by the qualities of material nature. Because the minute jiva lives within the margin between the Lord's external illusory potency, Maya, and his internal spiritual potency, Chit, the jiva is called Tata Sta. Marginal. When he earns liberation by cultivating devotion to the Lord, however, he comes completely under the shelter of the Lord's internal potency, and at the same time, he is no longer tainted by the modes of material nature. Lord Krishna confirms this in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayovya bicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati chaitan brahma boyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Page 4. The object of the soul's worship is realized in three aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Impersonal Brahman is like the radiant effulgence of the sun, semicolon. The supersoul or Paramatma is like the sun globe, semicolon. And the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, is like the presiding deity within the sun, complemented by his elaborate entourage and paraphernalia. Or, to cite another analogy, travelers approaching a city from a distance cannot at first distinguish its features, but rather see something vaguely shining ahead of them. As they come closer, they may discern a few of the taller buildings. Then, when they are sufficiently close, they will see the city as it is, a bustling metropolis with many citizens, residents, public buildings, highways, and parks. In the same way, persons inclined to impersonal meditation may, at best, gain some realization of the Supreme Lord's effulgence, Brahman. Those who approach closer can learn to see him as the Lord of the heart, Paramatma, and those who come very close can know him in his full personality, Bhagavan. In summary, Sridhar Swami prays, Samsara chakra kachayar vidhirnam udirna nana bhavatapa taptam katanchid apanam iha prapanam tvam udhara sri nrihare nrilokam. Oh, Sri Nrihari, that's Lord Nrsingadev, please deliver those human beings who have suffered all kinds of torments and been ripped apart by the sharp edge of samsara's wheel, but who have now somehow found you and are surrendering themselves unto you. Any questions? This chapter is, the Bhagavatam is the graduate study. This is like the postgraduate study of the graduate study. Chapter 87. It's the longest and most involved. It seems to me at least, even more involved than Chaitanya Charitamrita. Not to say that intricate and complicated explanations make it better. It's just to discern what is being said by the personified Vedas isn't easy. The topmost position is Braja. The topmost position is the loving exchanges between Swami Bhagavan Krishna and his intimate devotees. And they don't talk like this. That's the topmost position. So this position is something more like when we read Brihat Bhagavatamrita, the position of Tapaloka. Those of you that are a little familiar. Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka. Those four lokas are not discussed in great detail in the Bhagavatam, but Brihat Bhagavatamrita, they're mentioned. Actually, they're mentioned in Prabhupada's purport. They're not even so much mentioned in the whole fifth canto, the Vedic cosmology section. Largely, the Vedic cosmology section, fifth canto Bhagavatam, is dealing with three regions. Bhumandala, the Shishamar region, that is from Bhumandala up to Dhruvaloka, and then below, the seven planetary systems, and below that, the hellish planets. It does not discuss much about these other realms, but Brihat Bhagavatamrita does. And we learn about what goes on in Tapaloka. It's a place of meditation by celibates, and he's got a big sign. You can't enter if you're not a celibate. So there's places for those that are householders, but that's not Tapaloka. So they do two primary things: meditate and discuss. They like meditation especially. And the discussion helps the meditation. Strong intelligence helps to guide the mind. You know the verse from Bhagavad Gita, the intelligence is above the mind. And when things are in proper order, the intelligence can direct the mind. Supposing the intelligence is not in proper order, it's very difficult to direct the mind. And if you can't direct the mind properly, the mind isn't going to stop. The mind will go all over the place. And one of the things the mind does is speculate, and it does many other things. But this is something like that, because the very, very, very elevated discussions, the four Kumaras, they're residents of Vaikuntha, but they sometimes give their association to the residents of Tapaloka, and through association of the four Kumaras, who are perfected devotees, they're not just speculators and meditators, the residents of Tapaloka can become, devotionally infected or affected. So there's this function of the personified Vedas, just as we find in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. There's some discussion on some philosophical subject, and some say this, and some say that, and some say the other thing. And then the most elevated amongst the personified Vedas, they don't even take part in the discussion. It's kind of like what's being said here. The heat of dispute. Some people they love it. Yummy. And some people stay away from it, and some people stay away from it because they just don't like the heat, or they don't feel qualified to enter into that discussion. They don't derive any happiness from it. The most elevated, Gopal Tapani Upanishad is amongst them, is mentioned. No. There are derivative benefits to be achieved by trying to discern between these two words that are mentioned. These are favorite words of the impersonalists. Where is it? Tvam and Tat. You and that. Tvam and Tat. It's not unimportant. The This is in the 10th canto Bhagavatam. It's after Krishna's pastimes, so it's not unimportant. But we can better understand the exalted nature of the residents of Vrindavan by reading the first 9 cantos, and then after hearing the glories of the residents of Vrindavan, here's the exclamation mark. So they're not engaging themselves, the residents of Vrindavan are not engaging themselves in this analytical study. So if it's not needed, why is it even there in the Bhagavatam? Not only in the 11th canto, but other places and other places. This whole Sankhya philosophy. Is it needed or not needed? If it's not needed, why have it? It's a foundation. It's a foundation for understanding the world around us. And if we don't have a proper understanding of the world around us, guess what? We're going to have a misunderstanding of ourselves, because we'll identify with the world around us through our dear friend false ego. So the spiritual knowledge, the main message that's being woven through the purport is spiritual knowledge, same as we find in Canto 1, Chapter 2. Knowledge and detachment causelessly arise from bhakti. But do you know any devotees that are engaging in practice of bhakti that are attached to the temporary? One or two. Probably ourselves, attached to the temporary. So detachment for the temporary is assisted by Sankhya. Standing alone, Sankhya is insufficient. Sankhya is meant to carry one to bhakti. In fact, it does. That's Canto 3, the Sankhya section. There's other sections of Sankhya. It's in Bhagavad Gita 3 times. But the purpose is through proper understanding, factual understanding of self, detachment from non-self. Because otherwise we're attached to non-self and we think non-self is self. That's this tvam. So it's built into devotional service. So Sankhya it assists getting a proper understanding. I'll say the same thing in a slightly different way. When you read the chapter 26 of Canto 3, that's the Sankhya chapter. The conclusion of the Sankhya chapter is after everything is manifest, all the elements, this one, that one, and sense objects and senses and so forth, and even the demigods controlling those senses, like, we can't even blink our eyelid without the sanction of a demigod. We can't digest our food. We can't walk across. We can't do anything. So without sanction, and the sanction, of course, is from the agency of Paramatma, but Paramatma invests powers in different demigods to take care of blinking your eyelid and digesting your food and walking across the floor and living your life. There's controlling personalities through the empowerment of the personality guided. So that was skipping. The end of that chapter, the cosmic being rises. Until then, there aren't even bodies. They're just elements, senses. Now, senses doesn't mean the sense organs. It means the power of hearing, the power of without legs, the power of locomotion, the power of sight. Without the organ, because there's no physical bodies yet, there's no universal form, it's just, the sarga part of creation, what Vishnu does. So then arising from the causal ocean is the cosmic being. The Garbadak ocean is the cosmic being. It's in short, Sankhya is dealing with Virat Rupa. Sankhya is dealing with a form of Krishna. That's the form of this universe. And then from that understanding, very quickly, once understanding that we belong to this category of the numinous, right, chapter of Bhagavad Gita, phenomenal and numinous, we belong to the category of spirit, then meditate on the Supreme Spirit. So Sankhya leads to meditation, leads to bhakti. You with me? So is it important to understand the universal form? How many here can raise their hand and say, I understand the universal form, inside out? So if we don't understand the world around us, how can we understand ourselves? And if we can't understand ourselves and the world around us, how can we understand Krishna and devotional service properly? We're doing devotional service, but we're in one of these categories. And the target is pure devotional service. So do you need knowledge to get to pure devotional service? Not speculative knowledge, but knowledge that arises from bhakti. And so the knowledge of the Bhagavatam is stimulating knowledge of bhakti by understanding the world around us and the mind, our dear friend, along with false ego, our mind, and through that power of discerning one thing from another thing, the intelligence to connect properly with Krishna. So that's chapter 87 of Canto 10. And otherwise, one is under the influence of Maya. To read the translation again. The wise souls who understand how your Maya deludes all human beings render potent loving service to you, who are the source of liberation from birth and death. How indeed can fear of material life affect your faithful servants? Not just fear of death, it's fear of material life. And what's material life? It's the tendency to take objects that are Krishna's and be the enjoyer of Krishna's. Because it's current, I'll just mention the coronavirus thing. According to reports from the Chinese government, how did coronavirus start? Here's how coronavirus started, according to the Chinese government. They don't publish it, but this is the report. In a marketplace in Wuhan, they were selling not just animals, but wild animals. Because there's something about the taste of wild animals that people like. That was prohibited. That's how the previous thing, whatever it was, SARS, started, same source. But here's an object, and there's the tongue, and I want to enjoy the object. So the animals had a particular virus that they were immune to, but the people that ate the animal got the virus and then spread the virus. Now it's a world pandemic. But it's the senses wanting to be an enjoyer of a sense object. In principle, that's material life. That's fear of material existence. So the fear is not just, the objects out there. The proper fear is the tendency to be an enjoyer of the temporary. Just to amplify this point. The first part of this month, I was in a university in Minnesota, a 2-day thing, and there was a group of about 35, 40 people, mostly Western, quite new to Krishna Bhakti. And one fellow was older, but mostly it was students. So one person asked, a classic question: why, man's inhumanity to man? Why? Why do people? Why are people hurtful to each other? Then another question was, environmentalism. Why are people destroying the environment? Well, greed and avarice and the gates to hell it's one explanation. But what opens those gates? It's what brings us here to the material world. In short, trying to be the enjoyers of Krishna's property, or asat trishna, thirst for the impermanent. There's some other way to regard all those impermanent things. We don't trash them and say it's false. We don't try to be the enjoyer of those things. We try to see them in relation to their source. And then in relation to the source, what's the proper way of regarding that which is from the source? So that's a bhakti principle. So if we don't clearly understand what's the source of everything, not just notionally, but factually. The factual description is there in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's there in Sankhya philosophy. Where does everything come from? You say everything comes from God. Well, that's nice. And then somebody else will have a different idea. And how do you support your idea? Well, it's very, very detailed and that's what Sankhya does. Over here, there's categories of matter, and there's a cause of those categories of matter, and there's spirit, including us. We're from that source of everything in the category of spirit. So, there's matter and there's spirit. We belong to the category of spirit, and both of us are from the source of everything. That's where I've described you, phenomenal and numinous, knowing which there's nothing further to be known. The source of everything, and matter and spirit. So we have the material existence. Back to that phrase in the translation, fear of material existence that's material existence. Trying to be the enjoyer of that which we're not meant to be the enjoyer of. Trying to be the enjoyer of Krishna's. And specifically being the enjoyer of asat. And we're really determined. Doesn't work, we tried another way and tried another way. Try to do it nice, try to do it green, try to do it friendly, and try to do it in a nice way, but it's be the enjoyer. It's deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained. That's what brings us here, that's what keeps us here. So how do we, this position that's being described by the personified Vedas as the position of those that don't have that anymore. And they're residents of Vaikuntha even within this realm. They're in Vaikuntha consciousness or Krishna consciousness, even in the realm of the temporary. So all of these descriptions are to help us get there, to that consciousness, evolution or transformation of consciousness. Knowledge alone isn't enough. At the same time, when one is engaged in bhakti, one needs to be guided by proper knowledge and proper understanding of conduct and character. Prabhupada's example is that of a train. Aside from monorails, commonly trains travel on 2 tracks. So without both tracks, the train isn't going to go anywhere. Similarly with devotion, a life of devotion, 2 tracks. 1, that which makes the heart pure. 2, that which guides our activity. Supposing you have something that just makes the heart pure, but you don't have that which guides your activity. You're going to make mistakes and not progress. And suppose you have your knowledge that's only speculative and the heart isn't pure. You're not going to progress. So both are needed. That's the 2 tracks of the train example. So the most important thing is that which makes the heart pure. Now, it's not only that chanting makes the heart pure, because we know that Srimad Bhagavatam also makes the heart pure. Shrinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantaksto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Surit Satam. Just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam makes the heart pure. That's what we're doing. We're making the heart pure. But also then that which can guide our activity in its different progressive stages through this nice purport. Through the assistance of the personified Vedas with many nice scriptural references to help guide us. The goal is to get to the destination. The destination has already been described in the earlier chapters. The being a resident in Vrindavan, being engaged in direct loving service to the personality of Godhead. Just two related tangential points. Hanuman and Dhruva. Now, when Lord Ramachandra returned after ruling for so many years, he took everyone back home, back to Ayodhya, except one person, Hanuman. When Hanuman speaks about himself in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he says, how can you say I'm the most fortunate? Everyone went back and I'm still here. But at the same time, he's happy to be engaged in the way that he's engaged. In the Kim Purusha Varsha, that's where Hanuman resides, according to Canto 5, Chapter 19, that's one section of Bhumandala, and he and other associates, they're continuously engaged in chanting the glories of Ram. That's what they do. They probably take prasadam and take a nap every now and then too, but that's their primary activity. When he was hit by Indra's thunderbolt as a small child and fell down to the mountaintop and looked dead and all, that whole thing happened, one of the benedictions he received from the demigods was that he wouldn't have to die unless he chose, kind of like Bhishma. So he could just I'm out of here. I want to go to Ayodhya, be with Ram. But he's following Ram's instruction. He's happy to do that. He's feeling separation, but he's happy to do that. So, and that's Bhumandala. Now, it's a higher consciousness place than this one, than Bharat Varsha. Kim Purusha Varsha is a higher consciousness place. That's Hanuman. Then there's Dhruva. Where's Dhruva? He's in Dhruvaloka. And he is serving the Lord in Dhruvaloka. He's ruling in Dhruvaloka. Now there's details, but the Bhagavatam says in 5th canto, Dhruva doesn't give the detail. Dhruva is controlling prana within the universe from Dhruvaloka. The planets, read carefully. It's hard to read fifth canto carefully because it's so complicated. But it speaks of the planets. This is the Shishumar chapter, one of the chapters of fifth canto. The planets that's above this earthly realm, Bhumandala, and then Bhuvarloka and Svargaloka, though the planets in those regions, they're held in orbit not by gravity. That's an explanation. But the Bhagavatam's explanation is they're held by ropes of air, or prana. And the controlling place, the pivot controlling place is Dhruvaloka. And specifically, it's Dhruva. As he did when he was on earth, doing his meditation and life air, the air in the universe ceased. It wasn't flowing because so it's a function on behalf of Lord Vishnu till the end of creation. Now where does Dhruva go after the end of creation? Doesn't say where he goes, but one can guess. He's going to go to the abode of Lord Vishnu. But he's in the abode of Lord Vishnu. It's not destroyed at the time of cosmic annihilation. But there's no planets to control as he's doing now. But he's serving. I'm giving these two examples to say that what's said here in the purport and what we hear a lot, and that is wherever the destination of a pure devotee is, that's okay, provided there's some opportunity for some service. Now, it's good. We're encouraged to have eagerness to be with Krishna. But one can be with Krishna in some remote place like Kimpurusha Varsha or Dhruvaloka. Serving. Serving perhaps in separation. Now that's a very, very elevated state. That's what's being described. There's these 4 stages and so forth. But that's the teaching that the residents of Vrindavan perfectly exemplify. It's very high. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is stimulating that kind of love just through hearing, through sound. We have to hear carefully. Hearing carefully is very nice. And you hear very carefully and it becomes very clear. It may not be what, the picture that you wanted it to be. That's life. We don't know what's best for us. And that the way that life plays itself out for us is a little different than the way we would have scripted it sometimes. Like Dhruva, or like Hanuman, or like anybody, like us. So to take that position of full shelter of the personality of Godhead, we're protected. That's this reference from Ramayana. We're protected from fear because we have the guarantee of the Lord's protection. And if we have full faith, we have the Lord's protection. Doesn't mean, we walk across the highway in massive traffic because the Lord will protect me because I'm his devotee. We don't do foolish things. But we recognize it's the Lord protecting us that's protecting us. It's not our precautions. We take precautions. We take precautions for coronavirus. But if, the ultimate protection is the Lord's protection. That's the confidence of the devotee. We don't do foolish things. We take precautions. We drive within the speed limit and, we keep ourselves clean and, we follow sensible things. And ultimately we're dependent upon the Lord's protection. And that's a nice feeling. Okay, so let's see if there's some discussion. 8:30. Yes.
Different planet or where is it?
Kim Purusha Varsha, where is it? It's not a different planet. It's a picture of Bhumandala per Srimad Bhagavatam description of Bhumandala. And Bhumandala is a part of this universe, according to 5th Canto Bhagavatam. It's part of the universal form. It's part of Bhumandala. That's where it is. Now, it's complicated. I'm giving a short answer. It's complicated, but that's where it is. Yes.
Maharaj, we heard that ignorance is the cause of fear earlier. Now here it says time is the cause of fear. Right?
The previous was what?
Yeah, we have heard that ignorance is the cause of the fear. And now here it says in the purport.
Well, what drives ignorance? What drives prakriti? What drives the modes of nature? Time. It's not wrong to say ignorance. It's not wrong to say time. There, let's do this. Let's consider cosmic annihilation. You're Mahavishnu, and you want to annihilate the cosmos. What do? You withdraw time. The whole thing collapses. Now you're Mahavishnu and you want creation. Time. And the living entities. And voila. It unfolds. It's not like, but it unfolds. So the modes of nature exist eternally. Prakriti is eternal. But when it's manifest, the modes are then manifest. And when it's withdrawn, it's manifest through the agency of time. And then comes ignorance. First comes false ego. Influenced by the modes of nature, then different things. So behind ignorance is time. They both are right. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for addressing this complicated chapter and summarizing it in a very nice way.
There's more, but it's 8:30.
The question I had was there are 4 groups of souls discussed here in the purport.
Yes.
And it says that a third group of souls become endowed with pure devotion with a slight mixture of desire for speculative knowledge and fruitful activity. When the group is endowed with pure devotion, how is there a chance of slight mixture of speculative knowledge? Can this be tied to that number of qualities the living entity can achieve, like 78% of what that quality thing about Vishnu? Is that tied to that kind of explanation? Or is it
Say that. Tied to which kind of explanation?
It says that
Say it slowly, because you spoke quickly and I didn't catch it. Just tied to which kind?
we have heard that
Not the whole thing. Tied to which kind of understanding?
that 78% of qualities that living entity can accomplish with Lord Brahma.
Is it tied to that explanation? Are you asking, another way of asking what you're asking is, up to living entities up to Lord Brahma, they're living entities, but they're not at 100%. They're less than 100%, and therefore they're in that category, less than 100%. And then there's the 100%. So is there correlation between those two? That's your question?
Yes.
Yes. The consideration for the living entity, not Vishnu, the consideration for the jiva is consciousness. So there's 50 qualities, but not full. There's more, but still not full. And then there's full. Okay? Anything else? Yeah, I'm looking at our garland making team. They're really absorbed. And this is high philosophy. Gosh, leave me making garlands. Go ahead.
Would it be appropriate to say that when reading Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Bhagavad Gita, reading Prabhupada's books, and trying to acquire the knowledge which is in them and understand it, would it be accurate to say that the ends justify those means in terms of if I'm memorizing verses or studying Prabhupada's books, but I'm not becoming more Krishna conscious, I'm getting proud, let's say, or something like this, then is that a sign that one's cultivating knowledge is not of devotional quality?
It's mixed. Radha Krishna, pay attention. I want you to comment on this question. So, what's important, it's if one becomes proud having accumulated knowledge in devotional service, it speaks something about the consciousness behind the activity. However, supposing, let's take two categories. Some persons that they really like that feeling of pride, and there's another person that recognizes there's a tendency in me for pride to arise, and I don't like that tendency. I want to check that tendency. So one continues reading, the other continues reading. One is feeding pride, and the other is trying to check pride. It's not like I'll stop reading and stop studying because, I have a tendency to become proud, so I better be not, conversant in the scripture because I'll become proud. So it's what's operative. What I'm trying to say here is, what's operative is the consciousness behind, or the intention, sankalpa, behind, and bhakti's intention is to please Krishna. The more that one has that consciousness of pleasing Krishna, the more one will be protected, and Krishna will take away the pride, gently or abruptly, however he wants to do it. Now, I'm not sure I've answered your question. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Radha Krishna?
Yes, I was going to say that smartavya satatam Vishnu vishmartavya najatasi. The activity must be in connection with what pleases or reminds you of Krishna, not so much of yourself or how good you are.
So that's the barometer. That's the litmus test to see from studying, is your attention going to Krishna, or is your attention going to yourself and your capabilities of learnedness? Good.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is related to the previous question, and please correct me if my understanding is incorrect, is that when if one realizes this knowledge, wouldn't he automatically become humble? And if he's cultivating this knowledge and not becoming humble, then would it be because the knowledge is still on the theoretical plane and not fully realized?
Sure. That's another way of saying what Radha Krishna said. That's to say, the person that's not becoming humble, instead is becoming proud, they're not going to remember Krishna, they're going to think of themselves. They're at the center still in their thought process. Not factually, but that's the thought process. The humility is the reverse. Krishna's at the center, and then with that consciousness, more likely one is going to remember Krishna than if I'm at the center. This, this Maya factor is is the issue. It's right in the verse. Okay? So the answer is yes. We're going to end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.